Hi, and welcome to Damn Parenting, your English-speaking parenting podcast from Amsterdam. Today's episode, Positive Tests, Mixed Emotions. We're exploring mental health and early pregnancy. On today's episode, we'll be delighted to introduce our resident psychologist, Dr. Naomi Gibson. You may know her as the Good Enough Psychologist on our Instagram, or you may know her through her group therapy for moms at the Labour Department. So today is about celebrating the positive tests. So let's quickly have a quick check-in between myself and Maren. Maren, can you share with us, how did you find out you were pregnant and how did you celebrate?
Thought I was pregnant in my bathroom, probably like everyone else, cramped between the wall and my shower because I was still living in Berlin back in the days. So I found out I was pregnant pretty early because I was trying to get pregnant. So I was also testing early. I think I waited until I was 1 week overdue with my period, and then I tested, and that was early morning in my bathroom. I was expecting it, but then still, like, when I saw the test, I thought, okay, great, I was expecting this, and then okay, great, I'm pregnant. Oh, what? And then I thought, am I supposed to cry now or not? I remember these thoughts, and then I forced myself, like, oh yes, okay, I'm crying, I'm happy, like, all right, let's share the news. And then I sent a picture to my husband, who was already living in Amsterdam, and he was super excited. I sent a picture to a close friend and went on with my day. I think I called my gynecologist, and then she said, yeah, we'll see you in 5 weeks. And I was like, what? Wait a minute, what? I have to wait 5 weeks now? So that was my revelation. And then I shared later that day or the next day in person with my sister. So that was that. So I was expecting it and super happy that it worked out so quickly. Then I was just excited, and at the same time I didn't feel super different. So I just thought, all right, I'm pregnant now. Okay, cool.
And did you have any in those first 12 weeks then? So you were 5 weeks when you found out. So I mean, for the rest of the 7 weeks, was there any changes that you noticed?
I was so tired. Oh Lord. Yes. I was just so tired. I was still working at that point, having clients back to back the whole day with my coaching business. And I remember taking 10-minute naps, like literally between sessions, like putting my timer on for 10 minutes to just close my eyes and sleep because I was so tired. That's the main memory that I have of these first 12 weeks, just being incredibly tired. I wasn't nauseous or anything. I didn't feel any physical change so much, but just the tiredness was already preparing me, I guess. It's like, this is gonna be your life from now on.
4 years later.
Yeah, exactly. But so that was that. I was just super excited because I don't know. I mean, I was never scared that I would have a miscarriage or anything. It was just not in my thoughts because I also had no idea about the frequency or like the how often it happens. Now I know. So that wasn't really any of my fear or anxiety trigger for me. It was just not an option for me to think about. And so it was pretty relaxed. And then we were traveling to the US to reveal it to my husband's family because we wanted to do it in person. Did it on Thanksgiving. And then we revealed it to my family Christmas. So that was the two big revelations. But that was it.
Okay, a little bit different from mine. I literally on the day of my period, I just was like, I didn't get my period. I was so on time, and we were actually out celebrating our 10-year anniversary. We were in Ripley's, believe it or not, and I was walking up the stairs and I went, wait a cotton pick, like, wait, what? And so the rest of the day was spoiled. We were meant to go shopping, go for cocktails, go for dinner. We were meant to do the whole shebang, and I waited till the next morning because I wanted to have like the proper urine sample done. And just like you, it was kind of like, wait, what? How am I meant to feel? Is this real? And like we've been trying for so long. Like, I mean, it's one of those things you've been wanting. But it was a case of it was disbelief. It was happiness, joy, like there was a lot of emotions, but I did have the anxiety of miscarriage, fear of that. And that really not consumed me, but it really heightened my anxiety to be like, I have to now read everything there is possible about what it is I'm meant to be doing with, the first trimester and how I'm meant to be doing this. And so I had a lot of mixed emotions, as the title reveals.
Yeah.
I had a lot of mixed emotions about it because I wanted to make sure I did everything I possibly could. Yeah, just to make sure that everything went well. And thankfully it did. And I think this is also just pre-COVID, like the whole shutdown era as well. So that was the other thing, was there was something in the air. We didn't know what. But it was an interesting time. I mean, God knows we'll never go through that again, that's for sure. But a lot of mixed emotions. So yeah, today we're going to be discussing with our resident psychologist, Dr. Naomi Gibson, about everything that we're going to discuss, about what's to expect, what not to expect, and maybe how to help you,
especially how to manage all these emotions that are coming up, where to put them, how to identify them, and also how to make it easier on you, and how to calm your nerves, and how to tackle this bundle of joy and bundle of emotions that's going to be thrown your way. Let's dive straight into it.
So without further ado, we're going to welcome Dr. Naomi Gibson to her first residential podcast episode. Welcome, Naomi.
Thanks.
How are you
Hello.
doing today?
Really good, thank you.
So today we're going to be in touch with the topic of everything first trimester and finding out when you're pregnant, coping with all the emotions that come with it. Before we dive into all of this, since this is your very first episode, we want to find out more about you. So please tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, I am Naomi Gibson. I work as a clinical psychologist in Amsterdam, mainly with parents and parents-to-be, kind of supporting what's called the perinatal period. So that's kind of pre-pregnancy to sort of early years parenting. Yeah, I work sort of one-to-one and with couples, and do group therapy and some teaching around pregnancy and postpartum mental health in Amsterdam, face-to-face or online in the Netherlands.
How long have you been doing it?
I have been a psychologist. When did I graduate? 2014, I think, from training in the UK. So I got trained by the National Health Service and always intended to stay working there till I die, because that's kind of how they train you. But yeah, ended up moving to the Netherlands and starting a private practice. So my work has always been focused on children and families and parenting work, and then sort of moved here and really kind of focused on that perinatal mental health part of things.
And you also have children of your own, right?
I do.
Yeah.
I do. I have two children, one's 2 and one's 4. So like still very much in the thick of, having a young family and all the beauty and messiness that entails.
So you can test everything on the go.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just working out myself.
So yeah, coming back to the positive pregnancy test, obviously there's going to be a big shift in our mental state, as it were, because it's a case of some people are super trying to get pregnant. Some people just happen to be pregnant. There's various different stages for everyone. We all have our own different experiences. Let's discuss, what emotional changes are women going to expect in that first trimester of pregnancy?
Yeah, I think it can be massive. As you've said, it somewhat depends on how you've kind of entered the journey, how kind of shocking and surprising it feels. But I think regardless, there will be an experience of transition into this new normal. Yeah, it also comes along with lots of physical changes, feeling nauseous and tired and, these sorts of things. But there's like a whole sort of spectrum of normal feelings as well, isn't there? Just, you might have a friend who had terrible morning sickness and you perhaps not have any, and then feel like something's worrying there. There's lots of things, lots of ways you could be feeling. And there's also, with such big hormonal shifts in that first trimester, there's a lot more kind of low mood and anxiety and worry around a lot, and as well as perhaps feeling somewhat isolated. I hear a lot of people talk about those first few months feeling very kind of on their own with the news, which is exciting or not, and sort of feeling worried about it as well and isolated.
Yeah. When you say this with the isolation, that's kind of the next question. And when do we share the news, and how different that is coming from your cultural backgrounds, or also what you've heard from your friends and family? And one feeling, when you thinking back on this time in my pregnancy, when I did not have all this nausea and I didn't like physically feel so different. So one of the thoughts was, is this right? Am I like pregnant, right? Because I'm not throwing up every morning. I'm not having all this stuff that you hear about from other people. And then I kept asking myself, is this okay? I don't feel anything. Am I pregnant? Yes, I am. But when does it start?
Yeah, and it's so individual, and I think there's like lots of cultural expectations about what pregnancy should be. You know, from the first trimester up until birth, there's lots of norms that we know of from TV and culture generally. And yeah, if you don't fit into that, that can be really worrying, I guess. Thing about when do you tell people that again is completely individual, based on, you know, your past experiences, how supported you feel you need to be, your work situation. I mean, there's no right or wrong. I think what used to be such a driver for people not telling anybody before that sort of 10-12 weeks marks was the sort of a lot of shame and stigma around baby loss and miscarriage, and I see that narrative changing in a really positive way, about people saying, you know, if you were to lose the baby, lose the pregnancy, who would you want around you to support you with that? Who would you want to be able to talk to, you know, be it partners, mums, sisters, friends, work colleagues? You know, that's going to be different for everybody. And yeah, as you said, there are cultural differences around what's sort of expected in that first trimester.
Just telling Maren before we got onto there, in my head, it's like, don't tell anyone until the 12 weeks. The reality was, I told my family when I was over 5 months pregnant. So it was a case of, I think it's going to be different for everyone, but my whole thing was always 12 weeks, like, you know, just wait to make sure everything's okay and, you know, you get past that mark. But yeah, it's going to be different for everyone. So it's just a case of, saying that, I told my best friend when she came to visit me, I was 6 weeks pregnant, and I immediately told her. But then the rest of them, I just shut down. I was like, I can't tell anyone else.
Yeah. And that sounds like that was the right choice for you in that moment, and everybody will be able to have their versions of that. I suppose I would encourage people to think, like, what's the driver behind not telling anybody? Is it, oh, I would feel so ashamed or foolish or something if something were to happen, and then that doesn't seem to be as important as having people there to share in the joys and whatever happens in the early stages of pregnancy.
For me, it was also that I had no knowledge or research about the frequency of miscarriages or anything like that. I just knew it can happen. And if it does happen, it's most likely within these first 3 months. But now I know it's 1 in every 3 women, I believe. So it's quite common, yet no one did talk about it. I've seen also that you mentioned this big shift over the last, I'd say, from my experience, 2-3 years, where it really came more and more, I don't even want to say acceptable, but more heard that this is happening and we don't have to deal with it alone. So yeah, when you said what's the intention of not telling, I guess it's this whole, if it doesn't go well, then you're not talking about it. It's just going to go away. You move on with your life, and it's like, don't share this failure, was kind of like what I had in my head, that if it doesn't go through, then it's my failure. Like, I did something wrong. I wasn't good enough. Like, my body wasn't good enough to have this. So I think this is a big change that I have seen in the last couple of years, with the dealing with it and the reasoning with it and just sharing it.
And that sharing it just reduces the isolation and reduces feeling alone with it, which can obviously make worry about the loss feeling even worse if you're feeling alone as well.
And I think it's really nice that it has changed, because it gives way more room to celebrating. Because when I was pregnant, and I had still this thought that, oh, okay, I'm not allowed to share. I did share with my sister very, very early on, like I think second day after my pregnancy test, and then one close friend, and then the family later. But now I've lost my train of thought.
You were talking about celebrating.
Celebrate. Exactly. See, it's not even in my head. Celebration is not allowed. So this whole magical moment of realizing, wow, my life is going to change forever. And this is true for first-time parents or second-time, third-time parents, because no matter how many children you have, it's going to change your life as it was before. Giving this celebration a moment and not have it crippled down with fear, like, oh, I'm not allowed to celebrate because I'm not allowed to tell anyone, and I'm not allowed to share my feelings because I'm only allowed when it's safe, putting this in quotations. And I think this is beautiful to see that this room for celebration has expanded. And now we can have this moment of joy and curiosity and excitement that this new chapter of our lives, which we have no idea what it's going to be like, is there. And we can take this moment to just take a deep breath and be like, yes, I'm entering this new chapter and I'm going into it with confidence.
Yeah. I think it's interesting that you sort of said joy and anxiety, because actually those things will coexist throughout pregnancy and throughout, certainly in that first trimester, that you might have moments of feeling, yeah, wow, everything's going to shift and change. And that's so beautiful and joyful. But then everything's going to shift and change. What will my life be like? And I think like having a capacity and a space for feeling all of those things all at once, it's not one or the other, is probably needed in that first trimester.
Leading on from that, how do you think we're going to be able to manage those anxiety and fears in this first trimester? Because as we said, like we all come from different backgrounds. Like some of us are planning to get pregnant, some of us, it's a happy joy surprise. How would you say is the best way to start managing these emotions?
Yeah, I think first, like giving yourself a nice big dose of compassion and grace that, you probably are going to feel really overwhelmed. It's a big change, regardless of how you've kind of come into it. Talking to trusted others, be that, your midwives, partner, friends, whoever it is, and sharing the ways that you're feeling, if you're feeling overwhelmed or frightened. Doing some of the things that have always kind of kept a spring in your step, which is obviously hard if you're feeling overwhelmed and tired and sick and all of those things. But is there some kind of gentle exercise you can do? Can you do something that's moving your body, walking? I often think about just like the basic steps. Like you need to kind of keep your basics good. So are you eating enough and regularly, regardless of feeling nauseous? Are there things that you can kind of keep down and feel satisfied by eating? Are you getting enough rest if you're feeling extra tired? Are there things that you can kind of take off your plate for a short amount of time? Feeling connected to other people, whoever that is. And those things can they're not going to stop worry necessarily, but they can kind of keep it in check and keep it sort of managed, as well as sort of relaxation, mindfulness, breathing techniques. These sorts of things as well also really helpful.
Okay, so if we're going to do that for ourselves, how do you think our partners will be able to support us as well?
Yeah, I think it's like Maren was saying, like joining in the joy with you and the celebration aspect of it, like coming together and realizing that it's a massive change. Partners can also support practically by attending appointments and sort of joining in those things, having conversations about it. Yeah, just thinking again on a practical level, when I was in those first trimesters, both times, just feeling completely exhausted, needed to take lots of physical household labor off my plate, and that being more shared, and that's a really helpful thing that partners can do. But I guess it doesn't really look much different to how you would have been supported in other things. What do you do when there's stressful things on normally within your relationship? And that's going to look different for different people. And I suppose sort of you're starting your parented team, aren't you? Even in these early months, or it might be second or third or fourth child, your team is going to look different. So how can you kind of have conversations about that and sort of start thinking of yourself as parents, which is really strange at the beginning. But
one thing that you said, and also coming back to your answer before, one thing that really struck a chord with me when you said these basic things like, have I eaten enough? Have I drank enough? Have I sat down today? Have I take 5 minutes for myself? And I think this is also something that my husband and I do when we get into stages of, like you said, in normal life, like how can they support me when I'm stressed in normal life and not pregnant, like the normal partnership. We've established this habit of checking the basics. When was the last time you had 5 minutes to yourself? Was the last time, have you eaten today? Have you taken your walk? Like these basic check-ins. And I think this, because we tend to always hover in the more bigger questions, but then we forget that we need to establish the basis in order to be up there and ask the bigger picture questions and deal with all our feelings. Because if we haven't eaten and we haven't drank today, then we don't need to address the bigger feelings
Yeah.
because we need to eat a drink first.
Yeah, and I often feel like a bit of a cop-out as a psychologist, because in almost all of my my therapy sessions, we do like, checking on those basics, or I'll be like, let's slow down and breathe together. And it feels like, oh, breathe? Come on, we've got bigger things, bigger fish to fry here. But you're on the money. You can't do the thinking, you can't do the reflection if you haven't looked after your body. And especially in that first trimester, your body is doing so much. It needs to be fueled where possible. It needs to be kind of taken seriously and thought about in that way.
And I guess this is a great practice to establish. You have 9 months or 10 months for it to establish this quick check-in. Wait a minute, how am I, like, how does my body feel? How are my energy levels? And because also when you have a newborn or a toddler and then you get super overwhelmed and you get irritated and impatient, and a lot of the times I haven't had my breakfast yet. A lot of the times I've not been to the bathroom in 5 hours. A lot of the times I'm just running around the house up and down the stairs and I haven't sat down for 2 minutes. And then am I going to react patient and compassionate with my toddler screaming at me? Probably not. No. So this is really a good practice that I think is using this time of this pregnancy to make this a mental exercise, to check on the basics and check in with myself and with my partner.
Yeah, it really is crucial. Definitely.
Okay. Yeah, I never think of that. For me, I always thought I am breathing. If I'm standing here, I'm obviously breathing. I'm obviously still alive. So just keep going.
Yeah, but it's the sort of on purpose, like really slowing down your nervous system. That's what makes the difference. Taking, I often say, like 6 breaths on purpose. You take a pause, take 6 slow breaths, and it can really change your state of mind if you're feeling like completely frazzled, completely stressed. To just remind yourself and remind your nervous system that you're safe, basically.
Saying that, I actually did see something. I think it was by the Huberman podcast. They said if you do the crying breath, when you take 2 breaths simultaneously, that's meant to be a great way to release additional stress or something. I can't remember exactly how he phrased it, but when I thought about that, it was like, when you cry, when you do those double breaths, it does drastically reduce your stress mechanisms, the cortisol that's running around your body or whatever. But so that's something I did try previously to be like, let's see. So you take 2 consecutive breaths as quickly as possible, and that's meant to have some overriding effect.
Yeah, it's all just sort of nervous system regulation. Tears themselves have a really regulating effect on our nervous system, and the way you breathe when you're feeling like that.
Sometimes you just need a good cry. I've learned that
true.
Sometimes you just need to sit down and have a 5-minute sobbing cry, and then it just is like a clearance, like the water washes down the street. That's how I feel. And establishing this routine and be like, okay, I can sit down, have a good cry, and it's going to be okay after.
Yeah, and I think it's self-care, which it can be a bit fluffy and go put a candle on, but actually taking care of yourself. What do you need? Do you need a cry? Do you need a piece of toast? Do you need, what does my body, what does myself need to feel cared for in a time where it's growing a baby or looking after a baby or whatever that looks like?
So speaking about the care aspect, so this is one thing many international families might feel. I myself have experienced this time and time again. When you go to the house arts, for example, you, especially in this period where there's a lot of viruses, you don't want to go to the house arts going, kid's got a cold or I've got a cold, because they're going to turn around going, it's virus season. It can last 8 weeks. Sorry, get over it, kind of thing. But when you're in the first trimester, the verloskundige is meant to be taking care of your body and your baby, and that also includes your mental health. So there's the expectation of feeling anxious and whatnot, but is there a point where you feel like one of the parents should actually address with a verloskundige, hey, can you take this seriously? Like, we are hitting a point, and can you help us in this moment? I know it's only the first trimester, and I think they only see us like at week 10 or something like that, but it's just a case of, is there a way to kind of, have an open dialogue with the verloskundige? How do we channel that to be kind of saying, we're super anxious, what would you suggest to that?
Yeah, good question. I suppose keeping in mind, that they are there to help you, and they're there to kind of support you in the pregnancy, whatever that looks like. And obviously the physical side of things do take precedent that your mental health is really important in becoming a mother and becoming a parent. So yeah, with that in mind, I mean, with anxiety, if you're feeling really anxious for most of the day for 2 weeks or more, that's definitely worth talking to somebody about. But even if it's less than that, if you just want some reassurance about what to expect from the pregnancy or this sort of thing, I'd say to bring it up, and then it also would become part of your conversations that you have as you go along with your midwife team. And I suppose it will also depend on your experiences of mental health challenges to date. It might be that you've always been somebody who's had periods of depression or low mood or anxiety or whatever it is, and that's part of your holistic care to sort of make your midwife team know about that, because it is a somewhat more vulnerable time being pregnant in terms of life changes, hormonal shifts, everything. So yeah, I'd make that part of the conversation, and they're pretty good in their intake and stuff on finding out what mental health challenges or traumas or losses or these sort of things have come in the picture for you before. But yeah, I think also there's oftentimes with healthcare professionals, be it GP, doctors, midwives, that there's a somewhat like a power imbalance, them being the expert and they know. And so to just bear in mind that they do know things, but they're there to support you. So how can you help them to help you? And that's by letting them know what your state of mind is or what you're finding difficult. And there's lots of, if you are feeling really overwhelmed in pregnancy, there's lots of external support that they can offer you and refer you on to psychologists or different teams that can support you. So it's good that they can be aware of that.
Yeah, I guess sometimes it's also good to hear this is normal, because they, like you said, they have so much experience and they have seen hundreds and hundreds of people and women going through this. So they can tap into their experience. But you or I am myself, and I have only myself and my experience, and I don't know about 100 other women. Oh, okay, yeah, this is normal. So this was good for me also to hear everything's okay. You're totally in the norm. I know we always thrive to be not in a norm, but this is actually where I was always glad to hear you're totally average. Everything is totally up norm. Everything is totally on the charts. That was always a good news for me to hear, being at the psychological or the physical aspects of the pregnancy. I was always aiming for, yep, totally on the norm.
Yeah, and I suppose also knowing what's normal for you is really helpful. Yeah. So it can, for one person hearing that, yeah, this is good, can be really reassuring. But if you feel like, actually, no, this is not how I normally react to things, this feels like out of what I know, then yeah, that's not your normal or less normal for you. So it's both, basically, isn't it?
Yeah.
When you're not feeling yourself, so previously you said if you're feeling anxious for 2 weeks or longer, or even a little bit less, but when you say you're not feeling yourself, how long do you think it should go before you flag that with the Verloskunde?
Yeah, how long is a piece of string? I think it really depends on what you know about yourself and how you normally manage transitions and stress. And if it feels like, this is really feeling overwhelming, or, maybe your partner's noticed or your sister said, are you okay? Yeah. And that not feeling yourself can, again, look different for everybody, but it might be, constantly Googling things, not being able to sleep when you get a moment to sleep, or not feeling just really, really overwhelmed and out of sorts. And it's really hard to sort of say what that looks like. And that 2 week thing that's what I would be looking for clinically when I'm assessing people. It's like, is this a problem that just sort of peaks and troughs, or is it really like this is your everyday at the moment for a long period of time? And then that has a sort of a different approach.
Yeah, I mean, that's good to know, because everyone's pregnancies are always different, and there's no two alike. Even if you're the same mom and you have 5 or 6 kids, it's going to still be different. So it's always good to just keep checking in. And that's why for us, this episode for us was like super important, because the first trimester is, as exactly like you say, you're entering into a high period of like stress, bodily changes, hormonal changes, mental changes. You're becoming a parent. Like, there's so many elements to this. And so it's great to hear a voice of reason, is the only way I can put it.
Someone who's not done a Google research, but actually knows.
Yeah, I do my fair share of Googling as well, to be honest. But
well, it's just when the doctors sit there and they Google in front of you.
Oh God.
Yeah, that's the problem.
That's anxiety triggering for me.
Yeah, exactly. So we'll be hearing more from Dr. Naomi Gibson in future episodes, as she will be our resident psychologist. We're going to say thank you so much for joining us today and for calming us. I'm actually feeling a little bit calmer. I think I was breathing. I think when you were talking about breathing there, I kind of felt like my lower area started to kind of breathe and started to calm down, funnily enough. There you go. Yeah, thank you so much for your time. And we're excited to be able to start having you on regularly to talk about all the very important issues that hopefully you'll be able to ease the minds or equally trigger people to kind of reach out and start, looking for the help that they might need that they don't realize yet.
Thank you for having me.
Till the next time, speak to you then.
Wow, this was so interesting. And especially finally talking with someone who actually knows. It doesn't just like we have an opinion about things. It was super insightful. Also get this fact check and get the new inspiration and markers of motivation throughout this episode that I can also take away, even though I'm not pregnant right now, or I'm not dealing with having a pregnancy test in hand. I think this is still was super useful for me to incorporate also in other life situations, how to deal with anxiety or how to calm my nervous system, or how to, we said in the episode, check on the basics that's going on.
That was just something I never really considered, because just like breathing and whatnot, like you don't think, oh, I have to remember to put my one foot in front of the other to walk. You just don't think. So yeah, that was a kind reminder, I guess.
Yeah, super, super useful for me, at least. I hope to all the listeners out there as well. And as said, you can find Dr. Naomi Gibson on Instagram under The Good Enough Psychologist. And like we said at the beginning of the episode, she is also running the group therapy for moms at the Labor Department, where you can every Friday in a group setting discuss all the feelings that come with parenthood, and especially also that come with motherhood and the load that comes with that topic. As we say goodbye, just a friendly reminder to everyone out there: the laundry can wait, but your sanity can't. So take that breath. Ask yourself, when was the last time I sat down? When was the last time I had something to eat and drink? And then until next time, parents, and remember to take those well-deserved moments whenever you can. We'll speak to you soon. Bye.
Bye.